Hey, welcome to my channel Endless Pages. I'm Liv, and today's video is going to be a wrap up of everything I read in the month of October. It's going to be a quick one. I read 3 books, but that's okay. I'm really happy with the books I read. Obviously I had a TBR of 5, I think it was, but one of them was a real chunker, so I'm honestly happy with what I got through because it was a busy month. It was the first month out of lockdown for my state, so I had to go back to work and my social life started up again, and obviously I'm still going to TAFE online, so it was a busy month, but despite that I still read some great books. The first book I read is House of Earth and Blood. I paused because I always say it the wrong way around. I always get the Earth and Blood mixed up. This is by Sarah J Maas. It's a new adult book and it's the first book in the Crescent City series. Basically it's about Bryce. She's a party girl, drinking, taking drugs, all that stuff. And then one night her best friend is murdered, and the city officials assign her 2 years later, when the killings start up again, to find out who did it, even though they thought they had the culprit behind bars. So she is given assistance from this guy called Hunt, and he is like an enslaved fallen angel, and they have to work together to find out who killed her best friend. So I gave this book 4 stars. I really love Sarah J Maas, I'll say that without shame. I didn't give this 5 stars because it was so confusing. You open it from page 1 and it's just absolute info dump. Because I don't know if I pronounced that right. Info dump. Because there's different groups, because there's so many different supernatural creatures, and they call them the 4 houses of Midgard. So they've got 4 different houses. It's not really spoilers, it's at the front of the book. And the different creatures belong to different houses. So it's as soon as you start the book, it's telling you about all the different creatures around and the different leaders for the different factions, and it's just so hard to keep up with. It's great world building because there's such a well developed and deep storyline that assists with the main storyline and creates quite an imaginative and detailed world and full of all these creatures and all this other context and stuff. But it's instead of easing your way into it, it's just the first 50 pages are just information, and you don't know who's who and who belongs to what group and what creature's what, and I just found it super overwhelming. I mean, obviously it's going to pay off as you read along, and there's going to be so much detail and so much world building, but when you're first starting the first book in the series, it's it's so overwhelming and heavy to kind of get through. Because I started this book on the first day of October, and I finished it. When did I finish it? I finished it not that long ago, because I kept putting it down and picking it back up, not because I wasn't enjoying it, just because it was it was a big book, and I literally read a couple of books and then kind of came back to this one, and that might have added to the confusion a little bit, but even when I was reading it, just this book, I was still confused anyway, so I don't think reading it through in one go would have helped me any more, or maybe any less confused. Yeah, I finished reading this, on the 31st of October. So it literally took me all month to read this book. Despite my complaint about the heavy world building, I did really enjoy this book. It was a fun book to read, and despite its thickness, I kind of liked that it wasn't an easy solve, and there was lots of twists and turns in the case, which kept you wanting to read and kept you intrigued. I liked Bryce's character. She could get a little annoying at times. It does annoy me sometimes at characters that think they're always right. They just always have to be right, and that does annoy me just a little bit to read. But I did think I liked her character. I liked her strengths. I liked her vulnerability. I thought she was a well-written, strong female character. I did like the romance in it. I thought that was good. There was lots of tension. Everyone was making out this book was really smutty, but there's not actually a lot in there, despite what people make it out to be, and despite my expectations with Sarah J Maas's writing. But yeah, it was a good ending. I found all the characters and the supporting characters fun. I hope we get to see them a little bit more in the sequel, because I would like to see them be a bit more developed and find out a bit more about them, because they were interesting. So I hope they get used well and not just continue to be characters that you don't really know much about. So yeah, it was a fun read. I didn't see the twists coming at the end. I thought that was exciting. I liked the tension and banter between Bryce and Hunt, and it was overall a fun read. I just hope that I don't get to the next book and there's more world building and more context, because I don't think I could take any more. I think maybe I would have to reread this, or at least reread a summary of like all of the houses and the creatures before I read the sequel, just so I remember everything, because there is a lot of information in this book to remember. So the next book I read was actually a suggestion off Twitter. I put out a tweet and I was like, if I want to start reading Neil Gaiman, like, where do I start? Because he's written so much stuff and I feel like ashamed as a reader that I've never read anything of his before. So ages ago I watched Good Omens, the adaptation of his book, the TV show adaptation, and I was like, I loved that so much. I thought it was so good. So a few people suggested Stardust. So I did a buddy read with Becca from Bewitched Bex. I will leave her channel in the description. She's amazing. Go watch her. She's so fun to watch. And we did a buddy read together. So Stardust is a young adult fantasy, and it's about Tristan, and Tristan is in love with this girl in his village. And one night they're walking along and he's like, I'll do anything for you, I'll get anything for you if you marry me. And they see like a shooting star and it falls, and she's like, if you go get me that shooting star, I will marry you. So Tristan embarks on this journey into a ferry, which is like, you can go through, there's an entrance next to his village that you can go through. So he goes in there on a big adventure to get this fallen star for the girl he loves. So this, Becca said it really well. She said it reads like a fairy tale, and it really does. And I love anything to do with fairy tales, so I was automatically in love with this book. It's really wholesome and beautiful, and it is like reading an old school fairy tale. It's really fun and adventurous and just full of creativity and imagination. Yeah, Neil Gaiman really writes a great fun adventure full of danger and twists and turns and moral lessons, all in this really imaginative environment that's full of, you know, amazing fun characters that you'd like to see in fairy tales. I rated this 5 stars. I'm a sucker for fairy tales. It was beautiful. I loved the ending. I thought it was very cute and very sweet. And if you're just looking for a really wholesome and quick read, like, I read through this so quickly. This is a book for you, and now I get to go watch the film, because I've never watched the film adaptation of this, which is exciting as well. The final book I read is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a young adult contemporary book. We follow the main character Star, who's 16 years old, and she's kind of caught between like 2 worlds and 2 identities. The kind of poor black community that she lives in and is a part of, and she also goes to this majority white kind of prep school, and she's one of the only two black students that go to that high school. So that's kind of like these 2 identities that she has to kind of balance. And one night she's going home from a party with her friend Khalil, and Khalil is shot and murdered by a police officer, and he was unarmed, and the murder becomes a kind of a national headline, and there's obviously outrage at the killing of an unarmed black boy. So we see Star kind of conflicted. She's the only one that can obviously tell the truth about what happened that night, and she's also a bit scared too, because her community has become a war zone because of this, and she also fears for her safety, and unsure if anything will actually happen if she speaks out and says the truth. If the police would actually do anything about it, because it was a police officer that killed her friend. So we kind of read along and read with the kind of the aftermath of this shooting, and what it does to her whole kind of her world and her community. I rated this book 5 stars. It is really confronting, but it is a book that I think everyone should read. It's a really realistic exploration of police brutality in the US. I think it's written extremely well. The only problem I would have with it is some of the earlier scenes high school were kind of a bit boring, but maybe that's just because I'm older. I'm in my not mid-20s, I'm 23, so maybe I just wasn't the intended audience for some of those scenes, which is fair enough. But yeah, I just found some of them dragged a little bit, came a little bit boring. But you know, you were showing her day-to-day life, so you know, you've got to put in that kind of stuff. But some of it did get a little bit tedious, but that's literally the only problem I have with this book. I'm really glad I got round to reading this book. It was a fantastic read, and I recommend that everyone read it. So those are the 3 books I read in October. I was really happy. Yeah, no bad books this month, which is exciting. I read 2 5 stars and 1 4 star, so I don't think I could have asked for a better reading month. And hopefully this sets me up on good progress for a successful reading month next month as well. Thank you so much for watching my video. Let me know in the comments what you read in October. I'd love to see what everyone's been reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!